Styx here at the Token Minorities, bringing you the power rankings for Week 3 of Season 4 of the National Pokeball League. Now, this will hopefully be the last solo upload I do, as Michael will be now commentating with me and bringing his opinions, because I go back to school next week, which will allow for a much more flexible recording schedule. But for now, you have to deal with me this week. Sorry, but not really. But anyway, this week in the NPL, we have seen the highest number of close games to date, and Michael and I have once again been put in charge of assigning rankings as we see fit. Now, we have reached the point in the season where the preseason rankings effects on the current rankings have become minimal, as teams have been able to rise and fall to accurately reflect their true power. Week 3 saw the league create an interesting dynamic, as 2/3 of the entire league had a losing record by the end of this week, and the top 3 teams have identical records with identical differentials, making for very interesting prospects for the rest of the season. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into the power rankings for Week 3. Per usual, we are starting at the bottom with the 9 through 12 slots, and at number 12 we have the San Antonio Swamperts, who are 0-3 with a -7 differential. They were previously number 10, now they're down 2 in my rankings, and they are number 12 also in Michael's power rankings. And as you can see from the graphic, we have the exact same 9 through 12 spots, so our justification is pretty much identical. Now, this past week, they lost to the Washington Charizards 0-4, and when you get handily defeated by the bottom team in the previous power rankings, that is really only going to spell bad things for you. The Swamperts are obviously tilting now, and the battle made that very obvious, as there was a lot of things that were overlooked and misplays that were made, but we really hope that they're able to turn it around for the rest of the season, because they do have an incredibly impotent team, and there's enough of the season left to where they can turn it around and they can be fighting for a playoff spot. And if they make the playoffs, you know what? That means all records are reset and everybody has an equal shot at the championship. So they're at number 12 now, and they're not looking good, but I really hope they can turn it around, because I want to see this. I want to see this league be fun. I don't want to see the same teams dominate. I want to see some rising and falling to make Michael's and my jobs really interesting. Looking at the battle they had, it was kind of rough. I mean, they missed an early Toxic with their Blastoise onto a Goodra, which allowed Blastoise to be crippled at essentially 0 cost to Washington's team, and that put the Swamperts on their back foot for the rest of the battle. But once Conkeldurr and Blastoise were gone, he had nothing for a Crocodile, as it outsped a Celebi and Landorus Incarnate, who one of them should have at least been EV'd to outspeed the Crocodile, because if neither of them outsped Crook, then the rest of his team was outsped by Crocodile, and that's just a little oversight, which kind of reflects how the Swamperts have been doing this season. I mean, sure, Landorus probably could have had Rock Polish, but the fact that you don't have anything on your team to outspeed something that you definitely should and is definitely a threat really spells out kind of how the season's been going for you. So that is why the San Antonio Swamperts are at the number 12 spot this week. At number 11, we have Washington Charizards, who are out of the cellar finally. They are 1-2 with a -3 differential. They were previously 12, now they're 11, so they're up 1. And like I just said, they won over San Antonio this week incredibly convincingly. I mean, it really doesn't get that much more convincing than a 4-0. I mean, 5-0 and 6-0 are pretty much just domination. 4-0 means that there was still probably a good battle that took place, but you persevered through and you fought through and you were able to come away with a very convincing win. He brought Trick Room on Slowking, which was excellently set up and executed to poke holes in San Antonio's team, with the main thing that I want to focus on being the fact that he brought Signal Beam on his Slowking to take out Celebi. Now, it didn't end up taking it out, but just the fact that he brought it and had that prepared really shows that he has not given up, and he is still focusing on trying to turn it around and fight for a spot. I mean, every team wants to fight for a spot, and every team still has a chance. And what I found really impressive was that he used a combination of Gooey Goodra and Intimidate Crocodile to effectively counter a Dragon Dance Dragonite. Granted, he did greatly benefit from the lack of speed on San Antonio's team, as a non-choice scarf Crocodile was able to clean up the entire game, but that still shows that he had enough foresight to try to bring it and make it as fast as possible to outspeed different things on San Antonio's team. So I will give him props on that, and he brought the perfect coverage for Crocodile to be able to clean up anyway, even though I only saw Earthquake knockoff and Aquatail. But you know what? I'm still giving him props because he was able to clean up with a Crocodile. At number 10, we have the Montreal Cobalions, or Cobalions, I don't know. Whoever wants to say it, you can say it however you want. They are 1-2 with a -6 differential. They were previously number 9, so they are down 1 this week because they lost to the Portland Timbers 0-4. Now, losing to the number 1 team is never necessarily a bad thing, because, I mean, that's how it's supposed to happen. Like, if you are against the number 1 team, then you are obviously not the number 1 team, so you are supposed to lose. However, they lost 0-4, so that differential really kind of hurts really hurts any beneficial ranking that I could have given them. Now, on to the battle. I have to give them props. They excellently designed their Superior to handle Portland's Grass Resist, as he brought HP Rock for both the Zapdos and the Volcarona, but Portland's coach was able to work around it excellently, as I will explain later, and he did not bring enough deterrence for Quiver Dance Volk, as it seemed he merely relied on the HP Rock Superior to handle it. But Superior got knocked out early, especially trying to couple Life Orb Serp with Longevity, even though he had Synthesis on it, did not result in a healthy, long-living Serp. So that was kind of poor planning and poor foresight on the part of Montreal. But he still managed to poke a hole with Superior, but after that, he had no way to stop Volcarona, which ultimately ended up sweeping him, leading to the 0-4 end result as you saw. So that is why the Montreal Cobalions are number 10 in my rankings for this week, and they're also number 10 in Michael's for similar reasons. Now we move on to the 9 spot, the Colorado Avalugs. They are 1-2 with a -3 differential, and they were previously 6, so they have moved down 3 spots. That is a huge jump, but let me explain. This week, they lost 0-2 to the New York Metangs, who would normally be number 8. Well, then again, the Avalugs would be number 8, and New York would be number 9. But considering they played each other and New York did win, that's why I had them swapped. So in any other setting and any other situation, New York would have just moved up 2 slots and Colorado would have just moved down 2 slots, but as a result of them actually taking each other on, I had to give New York the edge in this week's power rankings, just because head-to-head they did beat the Colorado Avalugs and, in my opinion, deserved that spot ahead of them, and Michael feels the exact same way. Now, on to the battle. Really, Colorado managed to get rid of a huge wall very early, and things just looked very promising from the get-go, as Porygon 2 was gone by turn 5. I mean, he was able to trick it with a Rotom, and granted, New York did kind of make stupid plays by just continually going for Volt Switch, or not Volt Switch, T-Wave on a Rotom, and then Porygon 2 was able to be trapped by a Dugtrio and KO'd. But still, I mean, getting rid of a wall like that by turn 5 is ridiculous, and shows that you had some really good planning and some really beneficial turns into this match. And although Colorado was the early beneficiary of, honestly, it was some pretty stupid hacks. There were 3 para out of 4 turns and a crit to kill Mega Venusaur when it would have stalled out Entei's Sacred Fire, so Colorado really benefited from that. And additionally, Donphan had a Gunk Shot miss on the Rotom, which would have killed it. So later in the match, they had a Sacred Fire miss on a Feraligatr, which ended up putting in work, and had they hit that Sacred Fire, he would have won. But he got so much hacks early on that I honestly say it evened out. I mean, if you look at probabilities, it's probably much more likely that a Sacred Fire would miss than all of those things happened together. But I still consider them to even out just because of the impact they had on the game. And while the hack still sucks, he just did not have enough for Taft's threats and really lost the game when he went for spikes with Klefki instead of immediately paralyzing Feraligatr and going for damage once it's set up, because Klefki would have been able to take out the Feraligatr, who ended up putting in work and taking out 2 big threats and ultimately punching the hole that allowed New York to beat Colorado. So that is why Colorado is number 9 in my rankings for this week. In the number 8 spot, we have the New York Metangs, and much like the match between San Antonio and Washington, where the two teams were back-to-back in our rankings, you will hear me talk about a lot of the same plays in my justification for putting New York at number 8. They are 1-2 with a -5 differential, and they were previously number 11, so they're up 3, which is a big jump, but again, I explained that in my dropping down the Colorado Avalugs after they lost 2-0 to the New York Metangs. And in the battle, while New York made some very, very questionable plays in the early game, which, like I said before, allowed Porygon 2 to immediately get Trick Scarfed by a lead Rotom, which, if anybody leads Rotom, it's generally a Scarfer, in my opinion at least. I mean, normally in the OU metagame, like, you see a lot of lead Rotoms to try to, like, counter Garchomp and stuff like that. But in a format like the NPL, I would feel like you would lead with a Scarfer with a Volt Switch. So I felt that not even scouting out for the trick was kind of a dumb play, which led to Porygon 2 being taken out by the Doug Trio by turn 5. And he began to turn it around even after all of the hacks with Shuka Victini, which I thought was genius, as it was able to take out both Rotom and Doug Trio, which was huge. I mean, that completely turned the tide of the match. And while Fraligator did benefit from the Sacred Fire Mist from Entei that I talked about earlier, he was able to bring it all the way back by taking out Entei and Klefki. And I thought it was kind of funny that the game ended with Baby Hoopa taking out Daddy Hoopa. I mean, although there was a last Shadow Balling a Mew, but I refuse to acknowledge that part of the battle just because I prefer to think of the climax and the ending of the battle as little Baby Hoopa taking on Hoopa Unbound and coming through like a David versus Goliath type of thing. So that is why I have the New York Metangs at number 8. And Michael does as well, similar justification. Now, 5 through 7 is where it gets kind of weird for us, as we have the same teams just in different orders. And we actually talked, and it turns out we have the same justification. It just came to where the teams were ranked beforehand. So as you can see, the preseason power rankings are still affecting a little bit, but not as much as they were, just because the teams are still relatively around where they should be. At number 7, we have Manaphy City, who has 1-2 with a -2 differential. They were previously number 8, and they are up 1 despite losing 0-1 to the Atlanta Braviaries in what very well may be the game of the week. I think it is definitely deserving, but we will have to see. And they realized Atlanta's weakness to Toxic Spikes, and they set them up early, and he seemed to be able to predict that Trev would sacrifice something to get his Darmanitan, which was a huge threat to Trev's team, low. So he did bring a Healing Wish Alomomola to give a second life to a pressured Darmanitan, which I thought was amazing, and made sure that Darmanitan got at least 2 kills and was able to put pressure on Trev's team even after Trev sacked something to get it low. And the unfortunate part was he did not scout for Fire Blast on Togekiss, which ultimately cost him the game. He was caught off guard by Trev's unusual sets, which seemed to have him on the back foot, and eventually led him into a false sense of security, which was why he left his Skarmory, I believe, in on a Togekiss just to eat a Fire Blast. Now, I think he should have tried to scout for it a little bit more, but, I mean, if you're trying to go for game right there, I can totally understand not thinking that there is a Fire Blast on a Togekiss, just because Togekiss is generally more of support oriented. But again, lack of scouting has resulted in the Manaphy being number 7 for me, or Manaphy City. Sorry, I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to do that this entire season. But at number 6, I have the Oakland Rosarators, who are 1-2 with a -1 differential. They were previously number 7, so they're up 1, despite also losing 0-1 to the St. Louis Reshiram. In the battle, Sub-Toxic Lopunny was able to set up on Cofagrigus early, and Vaporeon's Heal Bell was able to mitigate some early risky plays and reads by St. Louis, and he made an excellent play leaving Roserade in the late game against Stoutland on a predicted overprediction, and got rid of that threat that very easily could have swept him. The ultimate irony was that if he ran the traditional Fake Out set instead of Quick Attack on Mega Lopunny, then he would have won. Now, this is kind of where it gets kind of a little bit hairy, because this is completely my opinion. All right, I have not necessarily the calcs to back it up. This is my opinion on how I think the end of the battle should have played out, and I don't think he should have sacked his Roserade to Azelf, as Maddie was not likely to be caught over-predicting twice in a row, and Azelf had already revealed itself to be Choice Scarf with Dazzling Gleam, so I believe that the best play at that point would have been to sacrifice Mega Lopunny to see what Azelf locked itself into, and then either go into Sableye or Roserade, as T-Tar was at a low enough health to be handled by either poke. I mean, hey, that's just what I think, and if it worked out, then, I mean, cool, I would have predicted something. But if not, then meh, it would have ended up the same. But anyway, losing, they're still up a spot, so the Oakland Roseraders are number 6 in my rankings and number 7 in Michael's. He feels it the exact same way, almost the exact same logic. Now, in the 5 slot, I have the Phoenix Sunkern, who Michael has at number 6. They are also 1 and 2 with a -1 differential. They were previously number 3, so they're down to after losing 0-2 to the Toronto Star Raptors. And Scarf Gengar was able to counter a Sash Breloom lead, but it really wasn't able to do much more. But either way, predicting that lead and making an excellent play that he did is definitely worthy of some consideration. But he made a very questionable play, leaving his Latias in against a Sneasel, as it was a very, very risky play to go for that early in the game, especially against his opponent. Jolt does not make risky plays early. He always plays safe, and in fact, he's usually overly safe. His offensive pressure, cheeses, was not able to handle Jolt's offensive pressure because he allowed his only 2 defensive mons to be killed early, which caused him to have to sack a mon or let something else take heavy damage every time to get something else in, so which ultimately led to Cheeseboy losing 0-2, and is why I have them at number 5 in my power rankings. And now we are at the top 4 of the power rankings for Week 3, which incidentally are the only 4 teams in the entire league to have a winning record after this week. At number 4, Michael and I have the exact same teams for 4, 3, 2, 4 and 3, and then 2 and 1 are just switched, but that's just a result of our preseason and whatnot. But at number 4, we have the Atlanta Braviaries, who are 2 and 1 with a +1 differential. They were previously 5, so they were up 1. They won 1-0 over Manaphy City in an incredible game, and they led Blissey with Protect, Rocks, and Rocky Helmet to pressure a predicted Scarf Darmanitan, who would have given him huge problems otherwise. And in the battle, Trev uses some very, very interesting sets. Not really sure what his obsession with Infestation Reuniclus is, but we saw a Trapstall Reuniclus with Infestation Knockoff, Toxic, and Protect, so I mean, that was cute to say the least. He was able to hide Fire Blast on Togekiss and get a surprise KO on Skarm, allowing for Magnet Rise Doublade. Yes, he brought a Magnet Rise Doublade and was able to 1v1 a Hippo. How many times do you see a Doublade 1v1 a Hippowdon? I mean, that was ridiculous, and it made me a little too happy, which I'm not sure why. But interesting sets, caught his opponent off guard, and gave him the win, which is why the Atlanta Braviary are number 4 in this week's rankings. At number 3, we have the St. Louis Reshiram, who are without a doubt the biggest surprise team of the season. They are 3-0 with a +9 differential, which is the exact same as the Toronto Star Raptors and the Portland Timber. And they were previously number 4, so they're up 1. They won 1-0 over the Oakland Roseraders, and it was kind of funny watching the replay. Apparently, he brought the wrong team, but he decided to roll with it anyway. And Draco Meteor Salamence was able to put in a little work early on, but was worn down by Life Orb and Toxic to where it was ultimately taken out after doing a little bit, but not too much. He made a solid read on Roserade to Lopunny switch to cripple a huge threat with, I believe it was a Will-O-Wisp, and SD Infernape was finally able to break down the Vaporeon. And here's where I have a little bit of question for the game. Stoutland could have cleaned up late game, but like I said in the justification for the Oakland Roseraders, he made an over-prediction on the Roserade, and Stoutland was taken out. However, Scarf Azelf, after getting rid of Roserade, was able to clean up the game with Dazzling Gleam, and even though if Lopunny was fake out, he would have lost, he still won. Winners find a way. That is why the Reshiram are number 3 in my ranking for this week, because they are still undefeated and are tied for the best differential in the entire league. At number 2, we have the Toronto Star Raptors. Michael has them at number 1. I just don't like Jolt enough to put them at number 1. They have again, 3-0, +9 differential. That's the same for all 3 top teams, and they have no change. They were number 2 last week. They are number 2 this week, and they won 2-0 over the Phoenix Sunkern. Now, they got bodied early by a Scarf Gengar, but he wasn't rattled as he won the ensuing 50-50 with Sneasel versus Gengar as he went for a pursuit, although it wasn't a true 50-50 considering Sneasel took only around 60% from a Sludge Wave, so Jolt was just making the safe play to take out a threat instead of making a true man's play, and he can tell you all that he wants that he was trying to make a man's play, but I know him. I know he made the calc. I know he knew exactly how much Sneasel would take from that. So he was just making a safe play, and it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, it did work out for him, but still it was a safer play than it appeared to be. He put himself in an excellent position by trapping Diancie with Wobbuffet, as it either killed the Diancie or allowed a turn of setup after an encore, and safe plays ended up winning Jolt the game. So I mean, I really can't knock him being safe. I mean, that's what wins, that's what has won, that's what will probably continue to win. So that is why the Toronto Star Raptors are at number 2 in my power rankings for this week. Finally, at the number 1 slot, I have the Portland Timber, again, 3-0 with a +9 differential. They won 4-0 over the Montreal Cobalions, so that was to be expected considering Montreal is a bottom team. But a 4-0 just reasserted his dominance as the number 1 team. And watching the battle, as soon as I saw that frickin' crest, I wanted to click X because of what happened last week that wasted a half hour of my life that I will never be able to get back. But I decided that his team looked offensive enough to where I chose to stick it out. Now, his team was weak to Nidoking, but Crest completely mitigates that. That was until he kind of got critted by Serperior, which killed it. But anyway, Zapdos was able to counter Serp, and I was impressed by the prediction of HP Rock on Serp, which he handled with a Chardy Berry. And even with the crit resulting in 2 pokes feigning, he still managed to turn a 4-5 deficit into a 4-0 win thanks to Pasho Volcarona making short work of the rest of Montreal's team, as Montreal really just was not prepared for it apart from HP Rock Superior. But either way, he made excellent decisions in team building. He made predictions even before the battle even started. It was just an impressive match all around on behalf of the Portland Timbers, which is why they are number 1 in this week's Power Rankings. So, yeah, that is the Power Rankings video for the week. Like I said, Michael will be finally joining me next week, so that should be interesting to say the least. We'll see how the dynamic goes. But thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe to the NPL, and, I mean, shameless plug for my own channel. Subscribe to Token Minorities if you haven't. Yay. But thanks for watching, guys. All that stuff, and this is Styx signing out. Why not? See you guys.